And we are live. Just the good old smash. Never meaning no harm. Beats all you've ever saw. Been in trouble on social media since before MySpace. Straightening the current sheet. Flattening the heliosphere. Someday a Nova might get him, but Facebook never will. Making his way the only way he knows how. That's just a little bit more than big tech will allow. Just the good old smash. Wouldn't change if he could. Fighting the nonsense like a true YouTube Robin Hood. All right, there's her fade out. Looking at the sun in 171 angstroms. We see this active region rising. And can we blow it up from full screen? No, we can't. No, we can't. All right. So we see sunspot 2734 setting. There's a coronal hole rotating out of the Earth-facing view there. And let's look at some other views, such as, let's look at 94 angstroms. And it's loading a little bit slow. All right. Let's just go back and look at the magnetic lines here. Okay. The solar North Pole looks extremely strong right now, as we see nothing but closed field lines up here. You see this area. You don't see any lines coming out of here, indicating all closed field lines, or the South Pole open field lines. All right, anyway. Let me just check and see how this is working out. All right. Got our pop-out chat. Thank you for joining us, our 3 viewers. All right. All right, where's the chat? Can't see the chat? And all right, great, wonderful. There we go. Good day to you, part-time friend. All right, let's look at the 193 angstroms view here. Take a look at the coronal hole. And the SDO server is a little bit slow today. A lot of people looking at the sun long after the CME's anticlimactically struck. Now, what I'd like to note from the 193 angstroms view is this. Notice how the North Pole coronal hole is closing? That's a sign that the solar minimum is over, folks. At least for this cycle. So we're looking for an uptick here. And in most ways, we are seeing it now. There is another little coronal hole coming in here, and the earthquake risk isn't going to expire for quite a while unless something suddenly changes. All right, let's not get into the weeds over this real-time solar wind. Let's refresh just to make sure it's the current data. All right, so you see a phi angle, not showing any coronal hole, magnetic connections there. Around 319 degrees there. Solar wind density 4.24 protons per cubic centimeter. So that's a pretty baseline level there, and solar wind speed 348. So very low levels of solar activity. Let's look at spaceweather.com to check out the 10.7 centimeter radio flux, which has gone back up to 71. So that's another good sign there. What we don't want to see is extremely low numbers. And for those of you who don't watch every day, you notice we are well above estimations here, possibly indicating an early start to cycle 25. That's a good thing. It's spaceweathernews.com for some more data here. All right, so we see not a lot going on with the X-ray flux. Pretty flat line there with a couple little spikes. Now there is an active region rising over the eastern limb here. Just give you an idea of that. Bring up a large image of it here. So we're going to look at stereo A before the end of the video here. And there's that active region rising. You can see some magnetic looping. So now we see magnetometer perturbations here. This could be a crossing of the heliospheric current sheet. And while we're on the subject, let's just go look. All right, so here's the gong 2. And oh, okay, there you go. And we're getting big perturbations in the current sheet. Let's check this out. Now that's essentially a weakening of the North Pole because you see the South Pole pushing through there, kind of pushing back the North Pole. So yeah, the South Pole popping through the North Pole field there. See where that red goes through the green. And let me show you the last frame. Note this point right here. So this is going to cause additional perturbations here, and it indicates that this active region is close enough to the equator that it's going to be pulling the solar polar fields in both directions. My best guess is that we've already crossed the current sheet, and this complexity is going to determine what the magnetometer does. And as we say regularly, keep in mind, this stuff can change instantly without warning, as it has right here. So that's the gong 2. Let's take an opportunity to look at the line of sight field plot here, because you should be able to see the B field being pulled around. By the way, the B field is the blue portion, and you should see some movement in that as a result of the affect of those solar polar fields. That's odd. This data is newer than the ecliptic field plot. All right, let's look at this one also, because this is a little larger view here. It does stretch out the poles, making them look a little bit distorted, but you get a little bit more resolution as a result. So I think the Earth is in the process of crossing the current sheet right now. We're probably going to see big perturbations on the magnetosphere movies, which we'll get to in a moment. For now, let's head back to spaceweathernews.com and look at the rest of the data here. So we see some undulations in the electron flux here. We won't see a dip in that. In fact, that's probably going to go up today. Charging hazards are quite minimal. And the F2 ionosphere is looking pretty average as it has the past few days. A little bit of a discharge region over Canada here, but nothing really too extravagant going on there. And let's look at the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. This looks like an update on the Enlil prediction. So we are expecting very low levels of activity, although we are looking at that active region. And again, since magnetism controls the universe, this thing can suddenly change at any moment because magnetism shows up faster than light or plasma. And do we have anything else on here worth looking at? Well, we're going to look at the worldwide electron flux here, not the North American. So let's just load that up. We have been seeing some high electron levels across North America, especially in the Pacific Northwest for the past week or so. So I actually had GPS errors here in eastern Pennsylvania a few days ago. And please load. Oh yeah, there's going to be significant GPS errors over North America, also Mexico. So electron levels aren't that high, but there's more that goes into this than just the electrons themselves. Let's just leave it at that. Here are the magnetosphere movies. We do expect to see some perturbations in this with the crossing of the heliospheric current sheet, which has just begun. As the Earth's magnetic lines move through that void region, you're going to see some oddities on this. It is nothing to freak out about. So please don't freak out. Anyway, there's the velocity. Whoops. All right, let's let that play through here so it makes sense. And I'll try to get the timestamps. There you go. Now you can see the timestamps. And here's the density. And what we're seeing is quite a low density solar wind, as corroborated in the solar wind data from ACE and Discover. Now, when we get to the pressure map, we are expecting to see some angular perturbations there. You should see some angular perturbations in the bow shock, where there's kind of a change in the angle of attack of the solar wind. That's the crossing of the heliospheric current sheet. Let's see if we see it here. It can also change the kind of the angle of the magnetotail, by the way. But I don't really see that happening, at least not in the beginning 2/3 of the movie. So based on what the magnetometer looks like, we are in the void between the current sheets as the Earth's magnetic field tries to decide which current sheet it's attached to. Let's look at geospace ground perturbation maps. Let me play some music because I need a little background tunes here. How about something original? How about Gem Cutter? That's a good one. That fits into these movies. All right, so back to the geospace ground perturbations. See if we see anything interesting at the poles, where the Birkeland sheets of current arrive at your planet. It's your planet's electrical outlet and inlet. All right, and there we are at the worldview. Let that play through. And let's look at the last 24 hours of earthquakes at USGS. All right, so 4.6 in Costa Rica, 4.9 in Papua New Guinea, which reminds me, let's draw in the warning zones as we do every day. Earthquake watch. In these regions, you're experiencing a 6 and 7 magnitude earthquake drought. So if you're in these areas, please have an earthquake plan. Please try to be an asset and not a liability in the event of a disaster. Again, magnitude 6 and 7 earthquake drought in these areas. All right, I'm not going to yell yet. I might yell, just not now. All right, so we also see a 4.5 in Peru, a 4.6 in Puerto Rico. Now, there's a big uptick in Caribbean quakes, folks. We've seen a huge swarm in Puerto Rico. At least they're not at depth. 4.3 in Alaska, 4.6 in Alaska, 4.2 in Indonesia, 4.5 in Peru at 85.2 kilometers, 4.5 in Mexico, right at the north part of the watch zone, 4.6 in Taiwan. Mr. Devine, did you feel that one? 4.3 in Indonesia, 5.0 in Indonesia. Let's take a look at that one. I doubt there's a tsunami, but let's look anyway. No warning, advisory, watch, or threat. That's good news. All right. Heading back. All right, that's where we were. Sorry about that. All right, Taiwan. 4.7 there also. 4.5 in Japan. 5.2 in Japan. That's the largest quake of the last 24 hours. So there you go. Earthquake drought continues. So watch out for a coronal hole magnetic connection. Those of you not aware, what we're talking about is when you see this phi angle riding around 180 degrees. That indicates a sun to earth magnetic connection, and it is associated with large earthquakes. Let's look at volcanoes. Let's see. Karimsky producing a 10,000 foot plume there. Shivaluch, 12,000 foot plume. Sakurajima, not identifiable in imagery. All right. Sakurajima. All right, we did that. Mayan, 9,000 foot plume there. Bromo, which is new to the list in the past couple days, 11,000 foot ash plume. Tucono producing an 8,000 foot ash plume. Don't fly over it with your recreational aircraft or your jetpack. Fuego, constant emissions at Fuego. Sabancaya looks like the star of the day, producing a 26,000 foot ash plume. And also Planchon Petaroa. thought it might have showed us a photo, but it didn't. Anyway, let's move on. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. We also have a bunch of featured channels, and we are growing. The operation is constantly evolving. We're looking for affiliates, sponsors, media companies, etc. The operation is not shrinking by any means. It's doing nothing but growing. And by the way, let's see if anybody's chatting. Oh my goodness, check it out. It's Snowflake Vaccine. Welcome to the live stream. If you look at SDO 193, it looks like a mini sun is reflecting back in front of the sun, with the two sunspot on each end. Earth either wormhole inside the sun or a huge deflector shield. Yeah, those aren't things. Maybe the CME got stuck on the current sheet. Yeah, that's not how that works. The current sheet just attenuates the direction of the CMEs. It doesn't hold them up. Most of that C-class flare ejecta stayed on the sun, and I'm going to show you in a minute because I did a little bit of training last night in terms of looking at the stereo A space beacon. So CCD bake information site I used. What's a bakeout? A CCD bakeout is when a charge coupled device detects too high levels of radiation and it shuts itself down before it takes damage. Yeah, what's up with that part-time friend? So what do you think, what do you attribute the jitteriness to of non-organic coffee? Do you attribute that to glyphosate or mycotoxins or what why do you think organic coffee doesn't make you jittery? I find that very strange. It seems like a serious health problem if regular coffee is making you jittery to the point where you're getting shaky. It seems like you may want to switch to organic coffee, folks. Anyway, let's move on with the space weather here. Let's go to zooniverse.org. Galaxy Zoo. Now, there are other projects here also. And yeah, I feel like I'm lost now. I don't know how I got unnavigated, but anyway, the Galaxy Zoo project is the largest citizen science project in the world. Actually, the zooniverseoverall.org. Zooniverse.org, largest citizen science project in the world. We need humans to classify galaxies. And this is a pretty good one. I mean, look at this object. Wow. All right, well, yeah. Let's get to it. Features. It's not an edge on disk. Is there a bar? Maybe. We'll say weak bar. Is there a sign of a spiral arm pattern? Definitely not. Is there a central bulge? Definitely so. Let's say large. Is it merging or disturbed? I don't think so. And are there features? Yeah, there are features. We're going to say a ring feature. We're going to say a dust lane, which is around the central region. We're going to say overlap and something else. And what we're saying by something else is this. Whether that's associated with the galaxy in the middle here, which is the only one you classify, it's hard to say. I think it's in the foreground. But if it is associated with a thing like a Z-field jet, that's serious. Anyway, head to zooniverse.org, Galaxy Zoo, and classify this oddly shaped a regular galaxy. We need humans to do it. Here's a value-added service for our US viewers, the US Doppler radar. We're not going to go in depth unless somebody requests it, so let's see if they have. Good morning, Kalo Jan. All right, so there's the US Doppler radar. We've got, looks like pretty hellish conditions there in northern Wisconsin. Everything from rain to snow, heavy sleet, ice, freezing rain, thunderstorms, you name it. We got a heavy band of storms going across Texas, and those look nasty. Tons of snow in the Central Rockies, and some snow in Montana, Washington, etc. Let's look at windy.com. We'll show you the upper level winds here just to give you an idea of what's going to happen next. See which way the 9,000 meter winds are pushing your storm systems. It's a pretty good proxy for the jet stream. And we zoomed in farther than we wanted to there. All right. And I would just like to note that we see this extreme meridional jet stream flow here. Normally the jet stream looks like this, but at times of solar minima, the jet stream looks like this. Where is it? It's a mystery. Now, in some areas, you get extremely high convergent winds, like up here. I guess I can't tag it. Anyway, by the way, Windy has a great mobile app also, so check that out. And let's look at the integrated space weather analysis system. I want to bring up some more videos about the CME since people are still talking about it. If you head to this page, we will put links in the description afterwards. You head out to Space Weather A, Core 2 Space Weather Beacon. We're going to add a bunch of data to this one. So we're going to take right now the latest one. Oh wait, you got to pick the movie first, right? So we're going to pick right now the latest one, and we're going to do 120 frames before the current date. Let that load. So we're going all the way back to 3.8 here. And you're going to see that, you're going to see the C-class flare. I thought you were going to see the C-class flare. Let's put it at an even higher resolution. Let's go to 10 frames per second. All right, let that play. What happened? All right, my bad. All right, there we go. I'm not sure how many frames we can load here. Let's see if we can load 250. The advantages of using a real computer versus a $60 smartphone to make hundreds of space weather videos, folks. And I can't read the date stamps. What is up with that? All right, bear with me 1 minute here. I will play some music for you in the meantime, because I'm trying to get a good view of this here, and it's not cooperating. All right. I think that should be the right gear. Okay, there's the 6th, there's the 7th. And there's the CME. And there's a second CME. You can see most of it went to the south. And there is one very high density portion of it that's still kind of floating around in a very weird fashion, really. So let me just draw on this a little bit here. So there's a CME. You just saw it. Most of the ejecta stayed on the sun. You could clearly see that it mostly stayed on the sun. But then there's a second one, and that mostly stays on the sun too. There is a dense piece of plasma coming out in the solar system, though. So look right in this region at the end of the movie. You'll see a dense bit of plasma rolling out. Right there. See that piece of plasma? Now, I don't think that's going to be able to maintain its course. And that is an odd one. It looks like it gets pulled out by the South Pole. That is interesting. Check that out. That is going on right now, by the way. So that's something to consider. Huh. So this is from that B-class flare 2 days ago. And geez, that is just a ball of plasma right there. Check that out. Let's see if we can see anything else. I didn't mess with any of these other views, folks. So let me see what else I can find here. Man, that's an odd one. That is very strange. Let's bring that way back. All right, going back to the 8th. This is kind of like the LASCO C2, by the way, but it's from the perspective of stereo A, located ahead of the Earth in terms of ahead in solar activity. So there you see a little bit of coronal mass ejection coming out. It's a little bit north of the equator. I don't know why this one plays so slowly. Let's just rock this ahead. There we see a CME on the 9th. I'm sorry, on the 12th. We missed that one. Look at that. That's yesterday. And then there's like a bit of persistent plasma that just kind of stays very dense. All right. Hey, that's I didn't notice that one before. Check it out. No way to predict anything about that, by the way. But let's go to Solar Ham anyway. See if we see any halos on the LASCO C2, because that was nasty looking. And I think it's Earth facing. I didn't see it at all yesterday. I was just not looking at the right place. So we got a bit of an unexpected CME there. Probably going to miss Earth because of the heliospheric current sheet. That's amazing. So what we're talking about here is the fact that this plasma is going to tend to stick to one side of this or the other. This is a lousy view to look at. Let me go to it. Let me go to this view. Now this is obviously two-dimensional from above view perspective, but you're going to expect the plasma to be associated with one current sheet or the other. This one looks to me like it got spewed out of this current sheet in this direction and also above it. So that's yeah, we could get an unexpected spike here, folks. And you don't need solar flares for those sorts of things to happen. And what happened? Oh, there we go. There's the C2. So let me just go and look at one other thing here to see if they noticed that on the Enlil forecasts. I think it's under all signets. All right, I think this one will cover it. And we're on the wrong year. All right, that's real helpful. Let's see if we can get to the current year. How about that? I have a feeling this one's not going to cooperate, by the way. See if it loads. Is it loading? I think it's loading. That's a good sign. Sorry, this is not the Enlil. This is the signets. We call this the signets. And yes, now it's showing us data from 2014. Wonderful. Let's close that because it's useless. I just want to see if I see that on the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard because that should be there. And I think that is it. Yeah, that looks about like what we're seeing from Stereo A, folks. So yeah, I wouldn't get my panties in a bunch about it. But I would get my panties in a bunch if I didn't have custom team kit from the Velo shop. Cyclists ride without any underwear. And if you don't have the right shorts, you're going to be having a bad day. Let's look at 94 angstroms rather. Let's play some additional tunes. How about Blacksmith? It seems like a good track for the Sun, right? The Sun is a bit of a blacksmith, as it does make heavy elements, doesn't it? All right, let me get back to comments here, as it looks like we got a bunch. All right. Yes, part-time friend. That was the theory. The theory is that that coffee being the most heavily pesticide sprayed crop in the world, probably drinking the cheap stuff might not be in your best interest. Aluminum is everywhere. Yes, aluminum's everywhere. And that's why Alzheimer's. By the way, aluminum is associated with Alzheimer's, folks. I've known about this since the mid-90s. I don't know why it's not common information. Don't lick your aluminum siding. It's kind of bad for you. All right. Southern California deplorable. I think we're going to be cutting the broadcast just in time for your phone not to die. Or your laptop or whatever battery's dying. Hey, those aren't BB guns. Those are airsoft guns. 6mm plastic 0.2 gram rounds. It's only about 1 joule of energy, about 1/15 the energy of a paintball. And again, they're not metal. They will cause bleeding if you're shot at point blank range. If you do play airsoft, don't forget to wear eye protection and possibly even ear protection. Deflector shields saved Earth from CMEs. It's not good or bad. It's just non-existent. Snowflake, you're vacationing in Hong Kong right now? Swamp gas. Don't worry, you won't see me in tighty whities because I don't own tighty whities. I'm a boxers guy. Man, we're getting real personal now. Why am I so early? You're right, I should stop drinking beer out of aluminum. The reason I'm so early is because I get up at about 3 o'clock most days. And yeah, so that's why we do these so early. And plus it allows people to view the videos when they first get up in the morning. Some people really like it. Shows them what's going on with the weather from a macro perspective, right? Let's look at a custom view just of today at 94 angstroms. I do see some sprites. So let's see what we see. We'll do just today from 0 hour until the most current. Any other questions or anything? Any other questions, comments, hate speech? Dude, go back to the sobriety, man. If you have a problem with drinking, don't start. If you can do it for 5 years, you should be fine. All right, so here's the 94 angstroms view. Just of today, by the way. Still some activity crackling in that sunspot. 2734, we bid you farewell. Happy trails to you, sunspot. Again, I would note the North Pole coronal hole looks like it's closing for the last month. A good sign, another sign of cycle 25. Hello, John Moorhead. Well, Southern California deplorable Henry Lindman. I live in Eastern PA, so. By the way, I'm also told that cucumber is good for the removal of aluminum and any silica. All right. So I guess it's about time to close this out. we will put links to the sites that we visited. Oh, wait, you know what? That reminds me. I think there's one article we wanted to cover. Oh, right. We wanted to talk about geoengineering. Yeah. One of the dumbest ideas in the history of mankind. Let's see. No thanks. Oh, here we go. Altering the atmosphere to combat climate change might not kill us all. It might, but it might not. So, yeah, thanks, Harvard. What a great idea. We'll look at a brilliant USGS article about what is carbon sequestration. First, let's look at this, though. Now, please tell your local legislator to have ScopeX banned. ScopeX being the project at Harvard where they idiotically are actually trying to figure out the right dose of stratospheric aerosols to block out solar radiation. A stupid, moronic idea based on the fact that humans are producing too much carbon dioxide, which is causing the planet to warm, which ain't true. Carbon dioxide doesn't cause global warming on this planet. And the radiative greenhouse effect is phony, thermodynamically unsound. But anyway, here's an article on Extreme Tech trying to soften you up to the idea that altering the atmosphere might not kill us all. What happens if we're altering the atmosphere and successfully dropping the temperature and we get a volcano of VEI 6 or 7? What happens then? We're already doing other idiotic things all around the planet, such as carbon sequestration. So we can leave an article about this too. It's one of the dumbest ideas ever. Current carbon dioxide levels are just over 400. And the point where plants stop growing well is about 280. So stop carbon sequestration and stop geoengineering. They are stupid, idiotic things to do. Tell your local legislator as if they will do anything to stop it. And let's look at that Sprite. I finally found it. There it is. Ha! Caught you. Caught you, didn't I? That's a long one. All right. I didn't mean to do that. I think cycle 25 is going to be similar to cycle 24. If cycle 25 is weaker than cycle 24, that's the time to sound the alarm. Charcoal capsules and zeolite, I'll consider that. Yes, radio operators. Radio operators notice these things first because they're doing real applied science, baby. Real applied science. Apple cider vinegar, also good for acid reflux, by the way. It increases the muscle tone of your esophageal sphincter, causing it to tighten up and prevent acid from getting into your esophagus. Bill Gates is funding Harvard University to block out the sun. Yeah, I heard that that's got something to do with it. If I had a fighter plane, I'd shoot down their balloons. Zeolite, okay. Yes, I was aware of the fake meteor showers. In fact, we covered that the day that the news broke. I believe that there are chemtrails. However, every time you see a persistent contrail does not mean there's one. There's almost none of that spraying from planes going on, especially not from things like commercial aircraft. So when you see a persistent contrail, it's probably from things like atmospheric conditions, such as humidity and electrical potential. All right, Lindemann. No drinking, dude. If you got a problem, you don't want to do it. People that shouldn't drink just shouldn't drink, man. I got a friend who's been off the sauce for about 11 or 12 years now. I mean, he had a hell of a time with it. He was a mess. He would be passed out naked on the toilet by 6 p.m. on the regs. So it's not where you want to be. And if you got a problem with drinking, you might end up there. So on a related note, since I'm closing out this podcast, thanks for joining, everybody. Please visit our links. We'll be putting the ones we don't normally place in the description after the video is complete. And remember, when you're looking at more CMEs that are unexpected, don't drink. And if you drink, find the CMEs and tell us about it. And don't drive.